So the next aspect to understand is, why is the amygdala triggered more readily after a brain injury? What's happening? Why is it detecting threat? And to understand that, I'd like to introduce you to the idea of fight or flight. Now, Professor Andrew Kemp has done a very useful video on the same new website about the vagus nerve. And in understanding fight or flight, that's quite a useful video to watch. So I'll keep it brief for the sake of this video. What we understand by fight or flight is a very primitive response of the nervous system to danger, to threat. So if you imagine back in caveman days, if the saber-toothed tiger was running at you, then you have really two options. You can fight it, or you can run away, you can flight. And that was the job of the amygdala. It's to move us into action quickly. There's no time for the wise mind in that situation. We need to react now, not weigh up the pros and cons, because our lives are in danger. So that's where that emotional mind really comes into its own. That's the amygdala doing its job. But what happens after a brain injury is the amygdala is being activated when there is no metaphorical saber-toothed tiger. The body is not at threat. So why is that? Well, firstly, the individual has been through an incredibly traumatic experience. There may be memories of the injury itself. There may be difficult memories from being in hospital. And there may be a genuine sense of external threat, of feeling more vulnerable in the real world because the brain isn't quite working as it used to do. It's very disorientating. Those senses of threat may be heightened at particular times, for example, getting in the car or leaving the house, or anything that reminds the individual of the incident that caused the injury may then cause a peak in that sense of threat. But the sense of threat may also be internal. So the slide you're looking at now suggests there are many different ways of thinking and feeling after a brain injury. And these thoughts and feelings may be typified by feelings of anxiety, of worry, of fear about the future, fear about what people will think of them, worry about what they can and can't do. And typically after a brain injury, the individual has an experience of lots of things going wrong. We spend years learning who we are and what we're capable of doing. And we build that knowledge up very slowly and very gradually, sometimes by experiencing what we do well and sometimes by experiencing what we don't do so well. But we have a sense that we know who we are and we know what we can do. Now, after a brain injury, that all changes. Suddenly the goalposts have moved and the individual is no longer really self-assured in what they can do. If I try that task, will I be able to do it, or am I going to fail? And that sense of possible failure can create a huge amount of self-doubt and fear. And it's that internal sense of fear, that internal sense of doubt that can really activate the threat system. So it's like it's always on alert, it's looking out for the threat. And that threat could be anything at this point. And so it's easy to see then why the system will very quickly trigger the emotional mind because it's detecting threat, but not so much the wise mind, because the system, the brain thinks, I've got to deal with this quickly, I don't have time to think about it. And then what shows up is irritability.